episode, what we'll be talking about is the importance of goal setting. So we're still in the early phases of the year, so it's important to set the year straight. Secondly, we'll be talking about the pay disparity between Black and ethnic minorities, showing a bit about our own experiences and how we can try and, in our own view, close that gap. And then finally, we'll be closing with a great book recommendation from Daniel, which is definitely worth waiting to listen to at the end. So yeah, let's get started. Thank you for listening.
Take off, take flight with you. For we never fly, but we're flying.
There we go. Finally it's recorded and finally we're getting started. So, welcome back to Take Flight episode number 4. I'm here with myself, Olu, Daniel, Pabilo and Shawal. How you guys doing?
Good, really good.
How's you guys' week been? Not too bad? Not stressful?
Yeah,
Feeling good, starting the year strong. Tired though, getting back into the routine of things, but good.
I can imagine. I had to take a short break to Athens this weekend. Try to relax for the beginning of the year and get the year started right.
Yeah, I saw a video of you trying to learn how to swim. How was that?
Not trying to learn how to swim. I can swim.
Oh,
I'm trying to beat that stereotype that black men can't swim, you know?
Well, you look like you're struggling, if I'm honest.
Yeah, whatever. Okay, let's get started. So let's start off with the main topic. Importance of setting goals. How do you guys set your goals? What do you guys think about it? Okay, that tells you that none of the people in the group have goals then. So when do you guys set goals? Beginning of the year, midway? Are you one of those people that wait until the 1st of Jan and say, you know what? New year, new me. I know P's trying to say new body. I see you working out. I see you in the gym.
Come on.
I think P definitely had a heavy Christmas. That's why he's getting done.
That's why he's trying to work out. To work off that turkey.
For sure, I think in terms of goal setting, so once a year is really sort of the big list where you review really what you're trying to tackle. But I would even say throughout the year, every month, I'm looking at my list and understanding, is it still the right goal to have? Does it change? Do I need to adjust it? Does it still make sense? Because as you sort of evolve as a person, you may say to yourself, this is not necessarily so meaningful when I thought it was. So
exactly. That's a key thing. I think
once
what you mentioned is a key.
And then throughout the year, constantly looking at it.
I'm actually very similar to P. I'm also doing it at the beginning of the year. And then I try to look at it at least every couple of days or every week, just a glance. And then I also try to share with other people in terms of sharing our goals with each other and looking at it at least once a month as a group, because that's actually a great way to get other people's opinions on how you're doing. And if you're not actually doing so well, then they can give you that extra push and accountability, because I can't speak to those guys and tell them I haven't done it, especially if they're advancing well in their ones.
Yeah, accountability is a big one we can touch on a little bit later. Dan, what do you think?
I think it's important to set goals all the time, whether it's beginning of the year, middle of the year, end of the year.
Do you set daily goals? Like make sure I wake up, make sure I brush my teeth, make sure I have 3 meals. No. What sort of level of goals are you setting? I'm not sure. That's
a different ball game. But in terms of timing, 3 times a year, Daniel.
No, I said it's important to set goals, whether it's beginning of the year, end of the year, or middle of the year. It doesn't matter when, because it's important that we all set goals. Because some people might think, it's past, January's ended, February's come and gone, March, and then they're in June. I think, okay, I'm going to wait 6 months till I set my goal. Yeah. But in actual fact, you don't need to wait that long. So people's talking about, do I need to adjust? Do I need to change? I think for myself, goals should be set in concrete, but your plan should be set in sand. Be flexible with the way you in your strategy.
Damn.
But
okay.
If your goal is your goal, it's important to you, and that's why you set it. So don't be afraid to be flexible. Don't be afraid to even delay it slightly, but still have that goal in mind that you still want to achieve and take that off your list.
Yeah. No, totally agree with everything you guys say.
I'll throw something out. We talk about goals. I know all 4 of us, we set goals. We set goals for our personal lives, for work in a different number of areas. We have maybe financial goals, personal development goals, etc. But I'm sure, our listeners are probably scared, or they're scared to set goals where they think, okay, it's too extreme, it's too big. I'm scared that I'm gonna not achieve it, so I'm gonna minimize my goal. What would you say to the listeners that are thinking that?
I always feel like whenever you set goals, it needs to be stretch goals. So personally, any goal that I'm setting, I'm trying to make sure I'm pushing myself to go beyond what I see as normal. I think a lot of times we see normal based on what we're exposed to. That's why I try to read a lot or interact with people that have a different mindset or outlook on life, because then you start to realize, oh, that goal that I thought was going to be unachievable is actually realistic. So you always have to sort of try to stretch yourself. There's this concept that some people use, which is called like the 10x goal. So whenever you set a goal, make sure it's 10 times what your original or what you would have previously set, so that you see yourself stretching. But I don't always recommend doing 10 times, because if you're someone that never achieves your goal, don't always go 10 times, because it's just going to be disheartening. Start with 2 times your sort of stretch, and then 3 times, and then work up to a time where you're saying, okay, now I'm going to go for a big boy or big time goal, and then just stretch yourself.
There's a nice saying around that, which is aim for the stars, and if you fall short, you've landed pretty far out of space.
I don't think that's the saying. I swear I swear it's like reach for the stars, fall and land on a moon or something like that.
No, in connection with setting stretch goals.
Man's making his own quotes.
I think the thing about it, it's all about scratching your potential. So the reason why one should actually think about stretching themselves is to say, how far can I take this? How far can I take myself? How can I surprise myself this year and do something which I didn't think I can do and go beyond certain limits? But guys, so for you guys, why is it important to set objectives in the first place? So would you ever consider going a year without setting any objectives at all?
Never, ever.
Not anymore. I'll tell you why. Because I started setting objectives, I think it was before final year or of university or whatever it may be. And, on my thing, everyone that came to my room, you saw my board, I had like 3 things that I was focusing on in terms of, degree achievement and other things that I wanted to achieve. But why I started setting goals is because often in life, or if you have goals that you achieve which you weren't even aware of, there's no sense of achievement, no sense of accomplishment. So you're just kind of going through life with the motions. You go up with the ups and with the peaks and with the troughs and everything like that. So it's just like a roller coaster ride. You don't really have a sense of achievement, or there's nothing to challenge you. But the one thing I find most gratifying is not necessarily achieving the goal, but it's actually the journey and the process.
Yeah, the process.
Because I find that like I learn about myself, and I can do something. So even if it's something small that I achieve in one day, I'm thinking, I can hold on to that tomorrow, because I know I got past that yesterday, and I've already developed that character. I developed that within myself to push me to press on to that goal.
It's tough, man, because I agree with you, but it's tough because I've been thinking this year especially is not to set too many goals. I guess so I would never say go into a year without setting goals, because I think you're just going around aimlessly. But setting too much goals can be dangerous.
What's too much for you? What's too many?
So previous years, I would like. Yeah, it depends on the person, but you also know yourself. So if you're someone that sets 20 goals every year and you only complete 2, and then at the end of the year, you're
sound like you're speaking from experience.
If my 2 goals are big, the ones I achieve are big,
The big ones, then why not?
But for me, that's okay for me. So I can end up. Previously, I was able to set lots of goals and only achieve 2, and still feel like okay, I'm fine with that. But for some people, they don't look at those 2 achievements, and they start looking at the 8 that they didn't achieve, and they start having like negative thoughts about themselves. Start thinking, am I really achieving? And then it puts them in a negative space.
But if you don't achieve that 8, maybe those 8 weren't so important as the first 2.
But that's the key thing. What you just said there.
But maybe you need to refine it,
No, so exactly what you're saying is correct, but it's just for the listeners and the people listening to have that mindset of understanding, okay, not achieving a goal does not mean, okay, you're a failure, you didn't succeed, but it could mean that, okay, maybe that wasn't the right goal, or you moved a different way, or you have evolved a different way, or changed. So not always being stuck to a particular goal and saying, okay, because I've got 20, I need to achieve all 20, otherwise I'm a failure.
But what you also need to remember that failure is an event, not a person.
That's true. That's true.
So,
I'm going to steal that for Instagram, Daniel.
Daniel's got bare Instagram posts and quotes and that.
in terms of the goals and setting them, etc., I think it always is important, and this is something I've tried to do the last couple of years, is try and make them as specific as possible. You can have, say, 4 big goals, but if one of them is eat healthier, it's not really tangible enough. If you give yourself a specific thing like, oh, I want to get my body fat down to a certain percentage, or I want to cut down a specific type of food, the more specific you make it, I think, the more tangible the goal is. And for me, what I've tried to do the last few years is I have a long list. It looks like a laundry list between 15 to 20. And in my head, I try to prioritize them. And at least by the end of the year, I want to try and get at least 15 to 18, at least 80% of them. And the last few years I have. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean every single goal is super big. Some of them are specific actions I want to do in the year that I know at a particular time period I can do. But because I'm specific, I think I can write.
But sure, with that 15, how do you sort of decide what you spend your time on? Because having 15 is great. But you're gone.
Yeah. So I basically split it. I have the list, and then I try to do it in terms of the timing. Some of them are things I want to do all year round, but a lot of them I know which time it will be the right time to do. So say, for example, if I want to run a marathon, so that's one of my goals for this year. I try and plan already at the beginning of the year which part of the year that I want to run it. Say if another one is I want to change jobs. This year I'm also looking to change into a different role within the company that I'm working at. I'm also targeting a specific time point in the year. So for the ones that I can, I give myself a specific time. And I try to kind of, on quite a high level, plan for the year ahead. And then that's how I know where to split my time. Like I already know for this year, for Q1, what my focuses are and what I need to get done in Q1 to continue in the year.
I think
I just want to plug one. Go ahead, then.
I think no, I was going to digress, but I was thinking Sherelle was touching on an important point, which is about how we set goals. Yeah. And I think everyone, we need to decide or think carefully about what we want to do and work towards. The next thing you need to do is to write it down, because once you write it down, psychologically it's in there, it's in your brain, and you always have something to refer to. And when you write it down carefully. We spoke about accountability, so speak to someone or share it with them. Even if it's high level, so letting someone know your goals, they can always follow up with you on it to make sure you're staying on track. As Sherelle was saying, break down your goal into milestones so that you can work towards it. Plan the first step of action, what it's going to be, and then from there keep going. And also, as I see a lot of us doing, we celebrate our successes, and when we achieve that goal, celebrate it. It could be something where often now it's Instagram, you might share something, but what I used to do is if I wanted to buy something that I could afford, even now or later, I would set myself a goal. Once I've achieved it, I would then buy that item or whatever it would be for that goal, so that anytime I look back at it, I can remember what the purchase was for.
It's good.
No. Yo, Daniel, one of the key points, and I think it's a great point, is accountability. Like, how do you guys sort of keep accountability? Because I see on Instagram people like, oh, work in silence, let them see your results. But accountability is like a big thing that I feel like you need to like. Whose voice is that, Ollie? Yo, that's Day. DJ Khaled always uses Day. That's how Day sound in my head. So how do you guys think of accountability? Because for me, I have a few close friends that I say, okay, this is what I want to achieve for the year. And I want you to bug me, ask me on a weekly basis, a monthly basis. Oh, Ollie, you said you're going to open up that podcast. What's it say? I haven't heard the episode. Like, what are you doing? Like, so that it makes you feel so bad that you, okay, my ego makes me just say, you know what, I need to achieve this. I need to do this.
Yeah, I mean, accountability for me is a huge one. The last couple of... So when I first started doing this in 2012, I was doing it pretty much on my own. And I would try to keep myself accountable and look at it every week, every couple of days. But in the last 2 years, I've been trying to keep myself accountable by sharing it with friends and actually sharing it with my brothers and getting them involved in the process as well. Because for me, it's just knowing that you have to update someone in 2 weeks, in 4 weeks, friends who are also sharing their goals. It gives you that little bit of guilt where if you know that you're not pulling your weight, there's people that are going to be asking you why not. And if they're the right friends, they don't even need to have the same level of goals. They can have completely different goals. But that group mentality does keep, for me anyway, the accountability high.
Yeah, so for me, I haven't actually done that. I think it's something maybe I've asked you
the last couple of years, P. You haven't shared anything, bro. I'm still waiting.
Yeah, no, it's true. But what I have done actually is relating to my action items under each goal is every single day track what the goal is, or what I've done, what activity I've done related to that goal. So
Every
I'm a
day?
firm believer in every day.
Damn, that's
So
dope.
this maybe is for another podcast, but it's something.
Maybe you're not busy enough.
No, maybe it's
Got too much time on his hand.
no, it's part of the morning routine. Anyways, but yeah, I'm a firm believer in if what doesn't get measured doesn't improve. So for me, it's tracking on a daily basis. But I do think actually it'll be more powerful to have a discussion with someone, as what Shual mentioned. So I'm going to start to look into that moving forward.
So it sounds like we're all sharing our number one tip in terms of goal setting.
So one thing that Daniel was talking about earlier is about growing to love the process. And the whole idea of writing these goals down is so during the course of the year, you can see the process, how it's evolved and how you've got to where you want to be. Now, one thing for me that I realized the last few years before is I'd set a goal, but because I wasn't sharing it with anyone, or because I wasn't sharing it specifically with my brothers, they would just see the output of the goal. They didn't really see the planning behind. Say if I bought a house or if I bought the second house, I told them once I bought the house, they don't know the process beforehand. Now, what I love about this goal setting is that for them, now that they're aware, and 2018 was a beautiful year for it, at the beginning of the year, I sat down with them and I listed out the goals that I have. It was a list of 15 to 20. And at the beginning of the year, I said, look, this is what I'm going to achieve this year or what I want to achieve. And I made them do the same thing. Then December just gone, we sat all together. We were trying to have monthly recaps. So one of my brothers went to the States. If he's listening, shout out. Then at the end of the year, we did a quick review of the goals. And because we couldn't keep in touch every month, some of their goals weren't attained, but they did achieve some of them, more than I expected, which was great. But for them, what they saw is the list I had at the beginning of the year, 16 on that list was achieved. So for them, they've seen that at the beginning of the year, my brother set these goals. Every month, he's giving us an update on how he's getting there. And then at the end of the year, they've seen the result. So now, not only have they seen the outcome of what I've planned, but they've seen the process, which I want them to learn to see as well. So this is why learning to love the process, exactly what Daniel was saying, rewarding yourself afterwards, sharing that accountability, it's a great journey and it's really helped me achieve and also see the others achieve a lot as well.
I think what you're saying there as well about, people only see in public what you've been practicing in private is key. People won't see necessarily the hard work, the hours you put into something. It was in 2017 where I think even P saw a picture of me, or I sent P a picture with my hair growing with a part in and P was busting up. He was laughing hard. But what people don't know is I didn't cut my hair for about 10 weeks. And the reason why I didn't cut it, I couldn't afford to cut my hair. I was saving up for a wedding, saving up for a house. I couldn't afford to cut my hair.
You know what? I thought you said it for P, saying that like he's setting the goal to grow hair and P can't grow hair. That's what I thought that was. Now I get the point of what you're saying, but before I thought you said it.
I didn't cut my hair for 10 weeks, and that was a sacrifice I had to make, and that was it.
So,
was it a joke about me?
I didn't make. Oli made the joke about you.
I just wanted to understand where the hair part.
No, I didn't catch it. Sorry, I didn't.
Never mind. Never mind.
I'm joking. All right, cool.
Okay, have you guys heard of because I think it sort of wraps it up, and you guys let me know. But have you heard of the term smarter when it comes to setting
specific, measurable,
exactly.
attainable, realistic,
so I think
time-based?
that's pretty much what everyone's discussed, the smarter sort of model for setting goals. So I think Daniel talked about.
What's the ER at the end of smarter? I didn't know smart.
So
what's the ER
S is for specific, which I think we mentioned.
I know what the smart.
Yeah, but not. You might know, but not all the viewers know what it means. So that's why I'm trying to go through it one by one.
Measurable, attainable, realistic, time.
Yeah, but can you go say it slow so people can hear it? I don't mind you saying it, but just say it so people can hear it. So what's the smart? Do you guys know what the smart is? What does the smart stand for?
Daniel, go ahead, bro.
Specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-based.
Yeah.
So
the ER.
Realistic should get removed, but that's just my opinion.
Realistic should get removed.
Smart.
Yeah. And then the ER part is just E is for evaluate. So it's basically always going back to your settings and just and I think you guys said it, like continuously going back to your goals to see it and check it. And R, which is what Daniel mentioned, was the reward. So always try and take some time when you've achieved a milestone to actually reward yourself. So if your goal is to like clear up your debt, after like every 3 months
spend 10 grand.
Don't put yourself in another hole. But after every 3 months, you might spend like £50, clear my debt. Yo, I'm gonna clear my debt. My student loan is my my only debt. So, you know, that's the debt I'm clearing. So, yeah, so it's reward. So just having time to really reward yourself. So why don't we just wrap up this section by just going round and giving our top tips when it comes to setting goals. So P.
Yes, someone else. I'm still thinking.
Okay, my number one tip to set goals would be simple: to write it down. I think if it's written down, then you'll work on it. If it's not written down, you'll forget about it. And I'll guarantee you 99.8744%, you're not going to do it.
So building on that very quickly, after you've written them down, look at them at least once a week. And if you can, share with one other person, like-minded, and get them to show you the goals to be accountable.
I swear we said one tip, not two. But anyways, I'll just touch on your second one now. So I'll just use the second one, which is just accountability. And I find the best way to stay accountable when it comes to your goals is, like Shuwal said, share it with someone and just get that person to nag you, call you, and just see where you stand with your goal throughout the year.
Yeah, my tip would be really try to force yourself to understand why are you setting the goal that you're setting. And on top of that, think to yourself, how do you want to feel once you've achieved this goal at the end of the year? So it's a lot to do with the why.
Dope. Okay, let's move on to the next section, hot topic. So as I mentioned before, in the media, an article has been circulating around ethnicity pay gap. So the pay gap between Black, Asian, different minorities. So have you guys read this article? Have you seen it?
Well, it's not necessarily an article. It's something that's just been it's being discussed in the media by government, parliament, and companies.
I think it was originally an article or a case study that was published around the ethnicity gap, and then it was picked up. No.
So you guys done?
I was like,
so can we talk about the topic now? Yeah. All right. Cool. So who wants to go?
So none of you seen it?
Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen an article. I've read a few articles. I've read about it, and I think it expands upon last year's the gender pay gap, which was revealed by and companies had to reveal. And I think now they're looking to do something with the ethnic pay gap amongst Black, Asian, and ethnic minority workers within the UK. I would say it's important. I think it needs to be shared. I think it should be publicly available. I think we live in an age where things are transparent, and I don't see why this shouldn't be made transparent also.
Yeah. Was it, Daniel, was it certain roles, certain sectors?
I'm not sure about certain sectors. I don't know if it was certain sectors.
So the way I understood it was that they're basically saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, but they're basically saying that if you start to look at the pay and the wages between minorities, you'll see a massive gap between them and people of either British, white, heritage, race, so male or female. You'll see that they were earning a lot more. Because the way I translated it, I didn't particularly think they was trying to say, and obviously we need to have the data, but we can have a conversation without the data. But I don't think they're trying to say that for the same role, same qualifications, that there was a massive gap or a significant gap based on ethnicity. I think they were talking just more in terms of if you take a group of data, different sectors, different jobs, you'll see that there was such a larger gap between minorities and whites, male or female.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm just looking at some of the numbers now. So Black, Asian, and ethnic minorities are losing out on 3.2 billion a year in wages compared to their white colleagues. Which, thinking about it,
But is that for the same role?
So that's on a total basis.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
just
exactly,
think you're doing the exact same job as someone else, and the whole minority has got 3.2 billion less. Because
that's why I don't think that's, and maybe I'm getting this wrong. I don't think it's for the same job.
No, of course. This is like on an aggregate level, but then they break it down into terms of jobs. So once you're a graduate versus a non-graduate, the percentages can change. So from what I see, for those, for example, in my case, I'm a Bangladeshi origin person born in the UK, but in the UK, I'm likely to be earning 12% less than a white peer who's also graduated from university. And that in itself is crazy, because if you're coming from the same degree, if you have everything else, the only difference is your ethnicity, and you're getting paid 12% less. It's just mind-blowing. And I think that's one of the reasons why the government is trying to get firms to share this information, because one thing is just being aware of the gap, and then once people are aware, then they'll tackle it. But at the moment, if no one's giving this information freely, it's very difficult for anyone to do anything about it, to be honest.
Yeah, it's true. One thing that comes to mind, actually, I'm just like, there's a number of reasons as to why the gap is as wide as it is. And I would probably, one thing that comes to mind is, I don't know if we're as good as, say, the white demographic in terms of negotiating our pay, especially when it comes to sort of year-end reviews. So that's one of the reasons, I think one of the drivers as to why you actually have such a gap. I think we blacks and browns need to probably do a better job. And I think also, sometimes I think we're so lucky just to have the position in the first place. We'll kind of take whatever we're given, as opposed to saying year on year, actually, I'm doing a very good job in comparison to not just to white people, but just in general. I'm doing a very good job in this role.
It's knowing what you're worth. And that's the key thing, is knowing what you're worth. Like, even before I look at, and okay, I'm having this conversation based on someone that's got the same qualification, same skill set, went through the same route. So let's say, for example, they both went through graduate jobs. And they're applying for the same job. For those specific areas, the first thing you should be doing is understanding, okay, what does the market say that this job is worth? So you go on, there's so many like sites where you can say, okay, this is the role, this is the company. They will tell you this is how much you should be earning. 40K, 50K. That's information is there. So then when you go into that interview, then you, like P said, you need to be able to negotiate and say, okay, this is how much I know I'm worth, and be able to turn down an opportunity if you believe that you're underpaid. Because I find if you already go into a company being underpaid, it then becomes even more difficult to see an increase. You start to see just small inflation increases. You don't see a large increase.
To be honest, even myself, just quickly done. Even myself, I have hardly ever negotiated my salary, only until I'm actually moving into a new role. But in comparison to, say, sort of the white demographic, even within their role, so I don't know, if they would have submitted a project, they're now going to use that as leverage to tell their boss, all right, look, I've done well in this project. It's April in the year. Give me a pay rise. So it's and that's what happens. So it's us sort of being a bit more bullish and understanding what we're worth.
But I think also, if we look at it, zoom in on the lens a bit, why there is such a big gap is because if you put it, it's down to, put it frankly, black people, Asian people aren't considered or aren't even considered or given promotions at work, or given less promotions at work. So therefore that disparity between what a white person would earn compared to an ethnic minority is going to increase substantially. And it's across the board in all industries. White people are always favored over black or ethnic minority people when it comes to a promotion. I was listening to an LBC conversation last week, and it even spoke about getting invited to an interview after applying. I think it was that a black person with, a black or Asian person, as you can tell by their name, have to apply 80% more times to get an interview.
So is that why your name is Daniel Johnson? Is that because I'm saying that's the struggle I have to go through. My name is Oluwambemiga Okwala. When I put out an application,
you don't want to move. Is that why you can't move company?
When I put out an application, I struggle to get phone calls back. But Daniel Johnson, they're like.
But P, you joked about changing name because one of the callers actually said he changed his name legally. And immediately he got a job in.
Okay, cool. Daniel.
No, but yeah, as I was saying, it was it comes down to even consider for promotions. So that all comes into the pay gap. But I don't know if any of you have seen the consultation that was the ethnic minority pay reports in the government consultation that was released. It's a 31-page publicly available on .gov.uk, and it talks about why this is needed. And the consultation period was open from I think November, and it closed 11th of January. So there are opportunities for people to speak up on why they want to do it and to force large firms to do it. And if we put it simply, why would companies not want to do it? They've done it for the gender last year.
They've done it for the public sector as well. So like
Sorry?
they already did it for the public sector because they're able to audit the public sector and see salary
wasn't-
gaps.
Public sector, it was for every company.
No,
in
I
the
agree,
UK.
but I'm
They
saying
had to file a public
they've
or limited.
already done it for the public sector because they can. So why not do it also for private companies? Because one of the stats, and exactly what you're talking about in terms of promotion, they looked at the police force and they said that only 1% of senior roles in the police force were to non-white employees. So that's exactly what you're talking about in terms of the promotion. When it comes to the top, you rarely see a non-white person there.
I think that also, just looking at the article again, I think that will also naturally skew the statistic a bit, because typically there's not that many high-earning, high-level ethnic minorities in these companies yet. I think during our lifetime, we've seen more females in leadership roles, and it is coming, this wave of more ethnic and non-white people in leadership positions. And hopefully once that does happen, then this disparity will be reduced more. But I think what Pete was saying at the beginning, once I got into my job, I was just super grateful to get a job. So there was no way I was going to negotiate any. I wanted to sign that contract before anyone changed their mind. Now that I'm a bit older and I've got a bit of experience, and I've had discussions actually before I moved into the role that I'm in now, I was offered another role, and it was kind of framed as a leadership, etc. But then financially, it just was too much of a stretch.
Peanuts.
So I was comfortable.
Yeah.
So then that was for me the first experience of having that discussion and growing from that. And now I'm actually quite a bit more comfortable having that convo. Sorry.
So what would you guys suggest in terms of what could you do in your role to help close that gap? What could we suggest?
So in terms of what do you feel like the solution is personally on us, like what we could do?
Exactly. How could you impact change?
So for me, I see it in two ways. I see it, you got systematic change and you have what you can control. So your individual responsibility and what you can change. Systematically, there needs to be, firstly, like Daniel said, they need to disclose the information and the details. That needs to happen. Secondly, there needs to be sort of measurements and metrics set to say, okay, we need to employ whatever percentage or ensure that there's a evenly balanced split. Similar as when the gender pay, which is not equal at the moment, and there's multiple factors why that's not equal, and personally I think it should be. But when they went for that gender stage, they said, okay, companies will need to employ a certain percentage of men and women. That same sort of logic needs to be done when it comes to ethnicity. Then now, in terms of individual responsibility, the way I see it is, you know the game. You know how the game is set up. Yeah? So I don't like to have that victim mentality. So now that you know how the game is set up, what can you do to put yourself in a good position? So
yeah, I agree.
If that means and there's a terminology called the tax to be black, or the tax to be poor, or the tax to be a minority. Yeah. So you know that you have that tax. So what that means is maybe you need to do extra qualifications so that you can get in front of that interview, or you need to go above and beyond. You just have to sometimes play that game and do what is needed so that you can put yourself ahead.
No, I agree. I think the first step, to your point, Olu, is definitely increasing awareness. I think that's the first step in sort of impacting change. I think it's on us to look at, like you said, look at the game, study the game, see how those that are doing well and what they're doing, what moves they're making. And I think also, finally, which we can do and what we're already doing, is once you've been given the position and the opportunity in a particular role, open the doors for others, right? And I think that's a way that over the next however many years, we're certainly going to see that change. We've been able to do that successfully at our company, which is keep the program that we started on and allow that to continue every single year.
But then how does that come into against pay? Because people can still come in, with the D&I initiatives that every single company has. People from ethnic minority groups can come into the company, but how do we tackle and address the pay situation?
First is the visibility. Like we said, you need visibility. And then after the visibility is having metrics around it, which holds companies accountable. Similar to the gender.
I see what Dan's saying. I see
Because we're not talking about employability. We're not talking about employability because that's a whole nother subject. But once someone's in the company, because if pay isn't so transparent, how do you create the transparency within the company or organization? But the main way to do it is for it to be publicly available.
Yes, it needs to be publicly available. Oh, I argue if it needs to be. I think it's already publicly available what you should be earning.
But it's not. It's not though. It's not publicly.
It is. Yeah. You can go online. You can go online right now. If you tell me your role and the company that you work for, I can find out what you should be earning.
No, but that's not accurate because someone in that role could have been working with the company for 10 years and their pay has been increasing. So in that role, you can either have a very large range or you can have something that's very inaccurate.
But then, isn't that then the same complexity of showing the data then? Because you then showing the data doesn't show the nuances of someone that's been there for 10 years versus how is that different?
That's different because the pay gap is the pay gap's gonna be relative. It's gonna be also I'm assuming it's gonna take into account tenure. It's not gonna be this person's been CEO for 10 years. They're on this salary. Someone comes in straight away. They're not gonna be on that salary.
Yeah, but that's the same way if you check online, you can see what an entry level role is gonna be versus a non-entry level. Like you can see that information on what is the average. Like, take your role, yeah, now. If I was to go online and check what is the average for someone that does your exact role in the same company, will I get an average or close about estimate to what you're earning?
Nah.
You don't believe it will be close? Okay.
Nah.
Maybe you will be able to negotiate a crazy amount. But I personally think it will be close enough in the 90 percentile of what you're earning, 90, 80% of what you're earning.
Nah.
Okay.
I think one thing though, how Daniel's asking, how can we tangibly ourselves try and address the pay gap? Just thinking out loud. Next time, for example, if I have a salary negotiation, I will actually go to mentors that I have within the organization that I can trust and I can actually speak very transparently about the financials and say to them, look, this is what I've been offered. You know the experience I've had. You're someone that I trust. This is why I'm asking you transparently. Do you think this makes sense or not? And if you go to enough people that you can trust who maybe aren't from a minority background and they know the worth of people within their team, that'll at least give you a good reference to check, am I being lowballed or not? And then once you have that reference point, you can bring that into the conversation and see if at least for you, in your case, can you close that gap if you are in that situation where you have a gap. Then, as P was saying, once you have that information for yourself, if you're supporting other people or you're aware of other people who are maybe one or two moves behind you in their career, but working in very similar roles, you can say to them very transparently, look, when I was your age, I was getting this and this. This is the comparison that I can share with you. You can use that as a reference point. And then that at least helps to address the gap or at least become aware of the gap.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't think
there's
there's anything we can really do ourselves to do it. I think it needs a bigger push.
No, I mean, ultimately, if you're always going to work for someone else, you can't control how much you're getting paid. That's why it's very important to do the financial freedom stuff that we can talk in another episode about.
Of that X something billion, whatever number you quoted in the beginning, we can certainly chip away at a little bit of it and do our piece. I think we can do something. The other thing, which I think is really practical and follows somewhat of Shawar's point, is just get to know HR really well. There are a few people in HR that over some time, they'll let you know, look, at this particular level, this is what we're paying out. And you can use that as a reference and benchmark.
But you got to be careful about that too, because they work for, yes, if I was to go around this table and say to you, each one of you, how much do you get paid? Yeah? People don't feel comfortable. Let's be like people, and that's the reason why companies have been able to get away with it. It's because people never like to talk about how much they earn. People don't like to talk about it. So you go to HR and telling them, oh, how much does someone in this role earn? No. It's the same as
not like that.
Yeah.
Not like that. I'm talking about, but I hear your point. More so get to know someone you can trust from HR and you can have a private discussion. I was more talking from a friendship standpoint.
Yeah.
Not necessarily going there on a formal meeting because that's not necessarily, I think, a good idea.
People just don't like to talk about how much they earn.
I agree.
People don't like to talk about it. Like, I'm more transparent with it. Like, if I know someone's applying for a similar role in my company, I'll say, okay, this is how much I'm earning. Yeah. With close friends, but I won't go around and say that to just anybody.
Oh, so we're not close friends then, because you ain't told me.
If you're applying for a role in my company, in my role, I'll say this is how much you should be earning. And if you tell me they're paying you 50% less than that, I'll say to you, hey, something's wrong here, you know, like. But it's it's a tough one because people are not always transparent with it. But I think, yes, there's more information out there than people actually go and check. And I think like people just are afraid to negotiate because there's so much games that people play and corporations play.
But I don't think this negotiation probably has a small piece to play in the disparity. 3.2 billion is a lot. When an Asian family is earning up to, is it what was it? Sure, a third less, and a Black African family earning up to a fifth.
No, not family. This was Bangladeshi or Pakistani origin males. If they graduated from university, could earn in the range of like 14 to 15% lower than their white peer.
Yeah, and then a Black African family are typically a fifth less than white families.
Yeah, but Daniel, I think what you're talking about is not the same. It's not what we're referring to. So what you're talking about is what you mentioned before when you were talking about the discrimination about CVs. That's what's really going to change the bigger, like that 3 billion that you're talking about. What's going to resolve that issue is not us negotiating contracts. It's us being able to get even to the interviews or being able to get that job, be able to get the promotion. Like that's what's really going to change or reduce that gap. Even some aspect of it could even be cultural. Because we're not even talking about some cultures and some races, the wife might not work or might stay at home. Then that's going to have an increased gap versus if you're comparing that to Caucasians who are both working. Like there's so many factors that we need to take into consideration. And I think there's not going to be one solution to it. I think it's multiple solutions. First, starting with discrimination that minorities face. But then when you do actually get in the door is understanding your worth, being able to negotiate, be able to always stay on top of your game and do more skills and training and bring someone through, like Pabilo said, like mentor people and bring people through as you get into in the building.
I think it's good. It's great that we're having that discussion. At least we're aware of this gap. Honestly, before this information was made publicly available, it wasn't something that I was even aware of, that the gap was so much. People always talk about the male-female gap. And that's something that's really been, the profile has been raised over the last few years. And I'm seeing my company make changes and I'm hearing about that a lot more. So I think this is potentially the first step in a cycle where there is change coming. It's great that we're having a discussion. It's great that more people are aware of it. Companies, as long as they start to show that publicly and we in our individual way can try and bump that gap up as well ourselves, then I think it's moving in the right direction. So, but no, it's a great discussion.
Cool. Okay, so let's pass it on to Daniel. We're gonna go on to the book review. So let me pass it on to Daniel. Cool.
Yes. So the book I've read and I've been reading again is a book called StrengthsFinder 2.0. It's by an author called Tom Rath, who is the #1 New York Times best-selling author. The reason why, this book was actually given to me by my brother, and he just said, have a read of it. And it's an upgraded version from an online original kind of test. And it just says discover your strengths. So, why would someone want to read this book? I guess this book is good for those who find themselves focusing on their weaknesses as opposed to their strengths. It's not necessarily a groundbreaking or revolutionary book to what's out there, but this book allows you to do an online assessment to discover up to your top 5 strengths. And it uses the psychologist Gallup, who's an American psychologist, online tests and some of his theories. So why, what attracted me to this book? When you open the book, it starts off in the intro saying that, we were tired of living in a world that revolved around fixing our weaknesses. And what's more, we discovered that people have several times more potential for growth when they invest their energy in developing their strengths instead of correcting their deficiencies. If I ask you, how many times in school, work, or life have we started to focus on our weaknesses? We spoke about goals. How many of you are your goals set on by improving some of your weaknesses?
Daniel, I couldn't agree more. And I was waiting to see what was your biggest takeaway from it. From reading a few books last year, this is a bold statement, and I firmly believe you actually cannot improve your weaknesses. In terms of what one should do is spend more time, like you said, focusing on your strengths. I just couldn't agree with you more. Ollie, what was you going to say?
No, I agree. I think you can improve it, but is not going to improve by such a significant amount.
Marginal.
Yeah,
Exactly,
so
it's
it
marginal.
just makes more sense to what makes us unique is our strengths, not our weaknesses.
100%.
So it's leveraging those strengths and working towards them, and understanding your weakness is important. So knowing what your weakness is, because if I know I'm not good at something and I always put myself forward for it, then I'm going to continuously fail. So knowing your weakness is key, but play to your strengths.
And I think what's also important as well is when it comes to the weakness space, being smart enough to know, let me connect with someone that actually has that as a strength, and let's partner up and let's work together. It could be in business, it could be on a particular project, and that's how I think you get the best out of all worlds.
Daniel, one question on the book. So after reading the book, has it changed anything in your day to day?
Yeah, I'm gonna get into the meat of it and everything. You know, there's a lot I want to share. I want to try and be
Go ahead.
Sorry. It's got a lot of punchy lines. You know, it says at one point, you know, from the cradle to the cubicle, we devote more time to our shortcomings than to our strengths. So, you know, if we don't have natural talent with numbers, in certain times you're forced to spend time in that area. At work, your manager you might not have a natural proclivity tendency to be good at something or have the natural ability, but your manager will give you and load you with projects that focus on that area because they say, oh, I want you to improve on that. Whereas you could be a lot more impactful to the organization, to the business, if you played to your strengths. I'm getting warmed up.
Oh my God, this is big.
I'm warming up. So, you know, a common misguided maxim is you can be anything you want to be if you just try hard enough. But that's not true. And
if that was the case, P would be a footballer right now, but
he's
in that cubicle.
Actually, Daniel, I would challenge that to a certain extent. I do think, obviously, it's as long as you're building on your strengths. But if you're building on your strengths, then whatever you want to be, if you have that mindset...
No. Sure. F your dreams, yeah? sometimes your dreams are not realistic. And
but
you can't be whatever you want to be.
You can be anything you want to be. You can't be anything you want to be
if you're building on your strengths.
No, yeah, if you're building on your strength. But I'll give you a twist. I'll give you a twist in a moment.
Bro, keep going. Keep going. You're talking that talk.
You know,
come on.
You know, from a young age, you told your young cousins, nephews, nieces. You know, we'll probably tell our children when we have them, is, you know, you can be anything you want to be in life. You know, but the thing is, someone who hasn't got the natural talent or ability to be a footballer, a swimmer, an NFL player, basketball player, you can't be that. You can spend 100 hours in a week on trying to improve and perfect that skill, but you're not going to make it to be in the Premier League.
Yeah.
You're not going to be the next Neymar. That's not you. That's not your talent. And I think a more accurate maxim, as you were saying, Joel, trying to twist it, is you cannot be anything you want to be, but you can be a lot more of who you already are.
Ooh, but you know what? Isn't that dangerous?
No, because that comes down to your natural talent, your raw ability. You cannot be anything you want to be, but you can be a lot more of who you already are.
But doesn't that contradict the 10,000 hours? Have you heard the saying about, like, you need to put the 10,000 hours in anything to be an expert? So, like, as a child, if at that time I believe you're a sponge. You can, if you put the 10,000 hours in from 2, you're gonna already be ahead of the game. So doesn't that contradict that?
Yeah. But I think it's a lot to do with at what period in your life we're actually referring to, focusing on your strengths versus your weaknesses. If you're 1-2 years of age, the advice around you can be whatever you want to be, dream big, go after it, perhaps can apply, because there's probably a lot of space that you need to still fill out from a mind and ability standpoint. But I see what Dan's talking about now. I see applying for us right now, or 18 to 25-year-olds, right? And I think it's much more imperative to look at it at that stage and say, look, what are my strengths? And let me go all in on my strengths. Because for example, Shuo or myself, or you just mentioned it. Okay, what's the likelihood of me playing point guard for the Lakers, even if I put in 10,000 hours?
Thing is, I saw you play. I played basketball a couple of weekends ago, and I know it will take at least 100,000 hours.
I don't even think it's gonna take that long. I don't think he's talking enough to play.
No, but going back to the book, you know, about this book is Strength Finder. So it's talking about finding your strengths. And it also talks about if you're not able to use your strengths, and the Gallup surveyed more than 10 million people, and what he comes down to is 34 different themes. But before I get to that point, he surveyed 10 million people, and also from it, people gave the response of how they would, in a workplace, respond, or how would they feel if they're not playing towards their strengths. So the chances are that you'll dread going into work, you'd have more negative than positive interactions with your colleagues, you'll treat clients, customers, colleagues poorly.
Powerful.
You tell your friends what a miserable company you work for.
Powerful.
You achieve a lot less on a daily basis, and have fewer positive and creative moments.
But one question, Daniel, you know how what you were saying earlier about building on your strengths? No, actually, sorry. So you can't. What was the phrase again that you were saying?
Well, the maxim, you can be anything you want to be if you just try hard enough.
No, the other one, it was something like be more of who you are, or something like that.
Oh, you cannot be anything.
You can't be anything,
but you can be a lot more of who you already are.
Yeah, so that point I would actually challenge, because what if there's a skill out there that you just haven't even realized yet that you excel at, or that you could be good at, because you just haven't been exposed to it?
I'm going to get to that, don't worry.
Wait, Dan, before you get to that point, I just want to add, I think, and I don't know if we do this enough, it is so liberating to say to yourself, I'm not good at X, Y, and Z, and I'm going to live with that. Yeah. And I'm just going to literally focus on what my strengths are. And I don't know if people say that enough to themselves, because what we do is we say, okay, cool, this is what I'm known to be weak at, and this year I'm going to try and work on it and improve it. Forget it. You're not good at it. No, but seriously, you're not good at it.
But it's dangerous. It's dangerous as well.
No. Wait, time out. You're not good at it. Tell yourself that. Tell others that. Be proud of it and say, look, this is not my areas of strength. I've got my team of people that can help me in these areas, but this is what I am good at.
But I think that's what makes you.
But that's dangerous.
That's what makes a successful leader. They're
aware. No, it's not dangerous.
That's what makes a successful leader.
So I agree. I think we're
someone who's not good at what
you're talking about it in terms of business. We're talking about it, and we're gonna need to differentiate the difference between talking about it.
It's everything.
Not everything, because let's say for example, you two are married. You two are married, yeah. You two are married. You two are married, yeah.
My wife is sitting next to me.
Okay, your wife is here, yeah. Let's say, for example, you're lacking in some area in your marriage. Are you gonna say to her,
No, go ahead. I'm gonna pick a point. Like, for example, not listening well enough.
Yeah, for example, not listening well enough. You're gonna say to hey, yo, man's 30, yeah. Like,
African man.
Like, yo, you married me, so I'm not working on that. I'm not learning that. We're done.
That's completely different.
I think you got to.
And that's why I said it's dangerous. No, it's dangerous if you're not specifying.
You're not being picky. You understand exactly what we're trying to say here.
Yeah.
I'm just making sure people are careful and not just hearing what you're saying and just thinking, I'm going to apply that to everything in my life, and not understanding when to apply it.
Because what will end up happening is you share everything. Go ahead, say Daniel.
No. Man, let me just finish this book with you, please. Just allow me. Just give me 2 more minutes.
Keep going.
Like,
got some stronger points, string opinions.
We've been speaking about these things, and one, this book would be useful, especially if say you're younger, you're young professional, you're still navigating yourself through your role and learning about yourself. Is that one big problem a lot of people face is most people are either unaware or unable to describe their own strengths or the strengths of the people around them. And I think understanding your strengths is one thing, but also understanding the strengths of others is very important, because you can then know who then to speak to if you need help with something. I know who I'd go to if I wanted to take some advice on something, say, buying a new car, or the best way to buy a new car, or I want to remortgage, I want to get a second mortgage. I know the people that I would speak to, because you got to understand people's strengths and ability. And this is important in everyday life, whether you're leading a team or working with a team, because at work, I use work for example, because we're all young professionals, we often have projects, we could get stuck with something, we need someone's help. Oh, I remember that XYZ is good at this, I know they can help me with this particular part. Or people can come to you because they know you're good at something. Or your manager might want you to present something all the time because they like the way you deliver a complex idea in a simple way. And this is why this book is good. And there's an equation I want to draw you to, and I think we kind of touched upon it in some regard, is that when you have talent multiplied by investment equals strength. So when I say talent, it's a natural way of thinking, feeling, or behaving multiplied by investment, which is the time spent practicing, developing your skills, and building your knowledge base, equals strength. And that strength is the ability to consistently provide near perfect performance. So that talks about how you need to use your talent, but also investing that time to that your God-given and talent that you have to equal strength.
So Daniel, that equation, for example, is a perfect, and I think this was kind of the question that I came up with earlier, in terms of what if in that equation you said talent times investment equals strength? What if that talent you're not even aware of, or you haven't been exposed to yet, and you're not even aware of that it's a strength? Would you, because for me, there could be skills out there, even now, like I'm in the age range between 25 to 30. We're still relatively young enough where if we wanted to try something quite drastic that we haven't been exposed to before, we may actually be better at that than what we've already been exposed to the last 8 to 10 years. So in that case, that's why building on strengths is important, but I think it's also important to balance it with a curiosity to potentially be open-minded to learn about a new skill or a new area that you're curious about, to see if that is also a potential strength.
Yeah, but I'm fully behind that. I think that's probably the next level to how this discussion, like how I understand it, and this point around is if you take an inventory of yourself today and you have a list of weaknesses, the point I understand is not to spend so much time dwelling over what those weaknesses are, but focus all the efforts as much as you can into your strengths to continue pushing yourself forward. Now, the example that we had earlier when we was talking a little bit around, if you're in a marriage, for example, and I take myself, I need to learn how to listen better. I can improve on that, but it's not necessarily saying that you can't improve weaknesses. I think it's more saying, think very carefully where you want to spend most of your amount of time and energy on, and that should be more geared towards your strengths.
But remember, also, the weaknesses doesn't mean you're rubbish. It just means that it's not your strength. So you can still have a good weakness, but it's just not your strength. And let me just finish off with, the book has 34 different themes, which it will then give you a result of 5 in online assessments. So it's like an achiever, analytical, arranger, belief, command, communication, competition, consistency, context, deliberate, developer, empathy, focus, futuristic, ideation, includer, individualization, input, maximizer, relator, responsibility, self-assurance, and significance, and strategic. So there are 34 different themes, and the online assessment would be, you complete something, it gives you your top 5 theme report built around the new strengths, insights, descriptions, and also gives you 50 ideas of action, 10 each for your top 5 themes, based on thousands of best practices based on thousands of best practice suggestions that they've reviewed. It's very insightful, very good for those who maybe want to discover their strengths and to focus on them, to develop them and maximize that.
Dope.
No, great book. I'm gonna look into that.
No,
Thanks for sharing.
I think it's a great book. I just think it's all about balance.
Yeah, Daniel, repeat the name and the author of the book again.
So just to repeat, this is StrengthsFinder 2.0 by the #1 New York Times bestselling author Tom Rath.
Thanks a lot for sharing that. It's definitely a book that I haven't been made aware of before, so I'm going to order it right now, actually, as we speak. I'm on Amazon, so thanks for that. No, it was a great conversation. I think we talked a lot about at the beginning the importance of goal setting, which is important, especially now we're in Q1 of the year, so we can plan ahead for the year ahead. It's great that us as a group of Black and ethnic minority, we're talking about the pay gap. Some of our listeners may not have been aware of that news cycle that came recently, so to raise that awareness, have that conversation with a friend. Even if you're not a minority listener, have that conversation with maybe a friend who is, and then get their opinion, because I think conversation, how we're having it, the more we have these conversations, the better the discussion will move towards. And Daniel, great recommendation at the end as well. Definitely, as I said, I'm going to order that book. So episode 4, it looks like, is in the bag. So congrats, gentlemen.
As always, if you've got any feedback, please email us at takeflightpodcast@gmail.com, and you can follow us on Instagram at takeflightpodcast.
Take off, take flight.